everyone. This video is a continuation of the sloper pattern for Smart Down. In the last video, we did the bodice sloper, and in this video, we're going to do the sleeve sloper. This is a fitted sleeve, and I'm going to demonstrate a simple method to do it for dowels. The supplies that we're going to need are the dowel or the dowel body. We're going to need measuring tape, a curve ruler if you have one, scissors, paper scissors, pen, pencil, and a straight ruler. And we're going to need the bodice sloper that we made in the last video without the seam allowances. So we're going to use this sloper as part of the guide as well. So to begin, now that we have everything assembled, we're going to start taking our measurements for our sleeve. And the first measurement that we need is the total arm length. So we measure from the seam line of the bodice, right at the shoulder, all the way down to the wrist. I have my little notes here, so I'm going to record that measurement, and I'm going to use centimeters because it's just easier for me to divide. You can use whatever measurement you'd like. You can even use, instead of a measuring tape, a little piece of string. And use that as your measurements. And then this part of the sleeve is called the cap, and this is measured from the shoulder down to this to the underarm seam. So again, from the shoulder length and I put a little piece of tape on I put a little marking like this, put the tape under her arm and mark that on top of a piece of tape here so I know from where to measure. So from here to here, and that's going to be about 4.5 centimeters for me. That might be a little bit too big, but that's okay if it's bigger. And then we're going to measure around the arm so we know how wide the sleeve is going to be. And right there underneath that mark that you made. And then the other measurement is the wrist or the hand. If you have a dowel where you can't take the hands off to dress her, just measure around the hand. So I'm gonna say 6. And then on your bodice pieces, you're gonna measure around the armhole on the back and the front. So just record these measurements because we're gonna need them when we start making it. So I already had measured mine. She's 6 centimeters in the back. And I measure by just walking my tape measure around the opening. And again, you can also use a little string and put it around there and then measure it straight. In my case, this was 4.5 centimeters for the front. So now that you have all your measurements, we're going to start drafting it. And usually on regular clothes, you start by pinning the bottom of the sleeve. But as you can see, you know, the space is so small, it would be kind of difficult to drape that. So we're going to do it on paper first. And I used a bunch of methods. I looked at a bunch of methods of doing this. And I came up with what was best for a doll size clothes. So the first thing we're going to do is draw a straight line up and down on a piece of paper that's going to be like the center of the sleeve. And then you're going to make a little mark on the top. Or you can draw a straight line across. That's going to be your middle of the shoulder. Next, draw a line on the top, and that'll be where they crisscross. It's going to be the shoulder, the top of the shoulder. Then we're going to mark a little point on the cap from the top of the shoulder to where your cap was, and draw another line there. Make sure that they're at 90-degree angles to each other. And the last line is going to be down to where the wrist is. We're going to make a long sleeve. So for mine, it was 9.5 centimeters. Draw another line across that. And now we're going to form the sides of the sleeve. So we're going to look at where our bicep circumference was. You're going to divide that by 2 and half on this side and half on that side. So in my case, it was 7 divided by 2, so that's 3.5 centimeters. So I measure from the middle out and mark a little point there. Same thing on this side. So those little points, and we're doing this without seam allowances at this point. And then the wrist, mark your halfway point from the middle and halfway point to the next side. And then we're going to connect the bicep dots with the wrist dots. Okay, and now we're also going to connect the top of the shoulder with this dot here where the bicep is. And that's just a basic geometric guide. So just a little disclaimer, I'm re-recording this whole section because when I went to edit the video, I realized my head was in the way most of the time. So just so that you can see how we're doing this, I'm re-recording it. So the way to form the shape that I found, the best way to do it on doll clothes, because doing it the human way is practically impossible, is first I mark this curve on the sleeve pattern by taking the back bodice, this will be the back, this will be the front, and flipping it over, and I made a notch on the bodice, and from the notch we're going to use that point to make our curve, to trace our curve right there. And then we'll do the same thing for the front. And remember this, neither of the patterns have seam allowances. So you take that, and here's your chance to adjust your bodice if you need to. Like I'm gonna do that curve a little bit past the notch, because this is not right dead center. And then for the top curve, what I'll do is I'll measure, or what I did was measure from notch to notch what this curve is going to be. So you can use your tape, or you can use a string like I'm doing here, and measure that. Just walk it along that curve. And just make it a tiny bit longer, maybe like 1 centimeter, to for the ease on the cap. And then take that little string and put it along those two points where you made the curve. And you can use, if you're doing it on an ironing board, you can use pins and pin that to the end, or in my case I'm using tape. And that's so I can form a nice sleeve cap. And then you can adjust it to whatever curve your pattern is, and then trace along that curve. And I'm tracing on the outside of it, especially if you cut, if you didn't give it too much ease, this will help give it ease as well. And then take that off, and you can kind of hand trace your curve. Or if you're not satisfied with it, like I'm not in this case, because this might not be our center. As you can see, the center is going to be where that seam is, and this, the front is shorter, looks shorter, it is shorter than the back. So our center is going to get shifted. So right at this moment, we don't have to worry about that. So let me do that again. I just wanted to give it a nice sleeve shape. Especially this front was shorter. So now I think I have it, and I'm going to trace that. More or less, it doesn't have to be exact, because remember, we're still working with our base pattern. So then you can go ahead and trace those lines. use a curve if you have one, to make it nice and neat. Or you can freehand it. At this point, it really doesn't matter. So the whole aim of this is that to have this shape the same size, a little bit bigger than this line. So at this point, I'm gonna I already measured this, so this one was 10.5, and I'm going to walk my tape measure along that curve, and it should measure, I want to give it like a 1/2 centimeter more, so I want it to measure on the 11, and I think it's a little bit way more, but we're gonna fix this when we put it on the muslin and actually fit it, drape it to the bodice. So we're gonna add seam allowances to this entire thing, except for the hem. And I did that already. I just wanted to make this part of the video again, just to show you the basic way that I took my measurements. But my head was in the way. So, see you in the next section. I've completed adding the seam allowances, and remember, this is just a rough draft. When we attach it to the sloper, we're gonna make our final adjustments, and then from the sloper, we'll make the final pattern for the sleeve. So now all that's left to do is cut this out and transfer it to your piece of muslin. Remember to square your muslin. And remember to mark on your muslin where the front and the back are, because this is not symmetrical. It almost looks symmetrical, but I don't think it's not symmetrical. I've torn a little piece of rectangle of muslin, making sure that it's on grain, 90-degree corners. And I'm going to cut my sleeve from this muslin. And then I'm going to mark my seam allowances. This is the foundation. This is not this is what you're going to make other patterns from, and you can change it to whatever kind of sleeve you're trying to make. So now I'm going to mark my seam allowances, and I'm going to make a stay stitch along this line, so that when I'm putting it on the mannequin, on the dowel, I can fold it under like that, or you have a guide to where your seam is going to be. And in this case, I marked 1/4 of an inch on this muslin. I can see through to the line, so I'm just going to trace them. I'm doing this with heat erasable pen. Remember to mark your notches. And then we're going to make the seam later. So what I did was I took my muslin off my dowel, and I'm going to test this by basting it on to the armhole and see if it fits. And when I put my muslin together, I make it so that I can pick the stitches out easily and open this up so I can measure the sleeve into it. I went ahead and did a stitch along all the seams, and looking at this right now, I'm already noticing that my armhole is way smaller than my sleeve. So here what I'll do is I'll measure my armhole again, and this is why we're doing a sloper. This will be our test pattern, and it's about that long. I'm using my little string, and I'm going to compare it to the armhole, to the sleeve. Retrace my armhole. So I want to make it just a little bit bigger at the cap, at the top. And change, like if you're going to change the size, change it above these two notches. So I'm going to go ahead and make my seam line along this one. So whatever change I made on the sloper, on the sleeve sloper, I'll be making on this pattern piece. So I went ahead and did my new stay stitch along where the sleeve cap should be, and I'll be testing this on the pattern. So this is the front, and what I'll do is I'll start pinning it. Pin it from the sides first, because we don't know where our center is yet. So you can pin it, or you can baste it, hand baste it. And what I'm doing now is I'm testing to see if it's gonna fit the armhole. And see what I meant, where your notches are. It matches the shape. And then in the middle, you should have some ease. So take that stitch that you made and kind of, I didn't leave a tail here, so okay, here's my tail. Gather it just a little bit so that it starts forming the cap. Oops. When you're gathering, make sure you don't pull the string all the way out. So you gather it a little bit like that. See, that forms the shape. And then we can start pinning it. The front. And then pin the other side, the back. And I've already made notches on the curve, on the armhole curve, so you can straighten it out. You only make notches on the armhole curve. Continue pinning and pin right along that armhole. Just to fit it into the sleeve. So I gathered it a little bit on the top, but that's just so that it fits on along this seam. But the seam is going to be straight. And once you sew it here, use a long length for your stitch so you can pull it out, because we're going to use this to make the final paper pattern, and then close it. So I'm going to go ahead to the machine and do that. Here it is, the sleeve attached, and I'm pretty satisfied with that. Then of course you're going to close it just to fit it on the dowel, make sure it fits perfectly. I'm just going to close it with pins for now. So these are this is the first sleeve that I made, and this is the second sleeve that I made, just to show more or less that the technique really works for dowels. And then from this sleeve you can do, this will be the base for your other sleeves. I made this one a little wider than this one, but it's up to you, whatever size you want to make it. On your sloper sleeve now, mark the center. I had a little bit of gather there. You shouldn't have any gathers here. So in the final step, you just have to make sure that you don't have any tucks. Okay, now that I removed this sleeve and I have my midpoint marked, I'm going to take it apart again. Always losing my stuff. When you're taking things apart, picking out the bobbin thread is the easiest. So in this case, my top thread is black and my bobbin is white, so I know which one is which. And I used a really long stitch, so it was easy to take out. So this is going to be my sleeve. I'm going to take out that stay stitching because see how it gets that shape, the cap. Now I want to transfer it to the flat pattern. So no need to reinvent the wheel, just take your flat pattern that you had before and just more or less trace it again. So in this case, I'm going to trace off part of what I have to cut off to make the length of the cap the same length as the arm opening. It's just a little trial and error, but once you have your basic block, you can make any sleeve from this. And all the sleeves are not going to be the same shape because you're going to have the sleeve according to your sloper. So this is the great thing about making a sloper is that you're making it fit your specific dowel and your specific sloper. For smart dowel, it's even easier, but I'm showing this so that you can do it with any dowel, because smart dowel, Danny Shoe puts out a bunch of patterns already, and what I usually do is if I want to make another fashion, I take the pieces, whatever pieces I need, and trace those and just modify them. But if you don't have a pattern for your specific dowel, this is a great way to get your own bodice blocks so you can make your fashions. And on this I have the seams, but I'm going to make sure that this outline is along the 1/4 inch seam, and then I'm going to cut it without the seams because that's how I want to use my my bodice block, is without the seams. So in other videos I'm going to show you how to use your block once we've done the entire block to make different fashions. So stay tuned. Thank you for watching, and like and subscribe if you're interested in more videos like this, or if you have any other ideas, please let me know in the comments. Thank you.